This is microphone 7, mic 7, check 1, 2. I'm at the first witness position, the managing director, official journals of government. Mic check 1, 2. If this water bottle fits in your bag. Sources: Frontier Springs, located in New Tripoli, PA, Bangor, PA, Strasburg, PA, Higgins, PA, South Covenant Valley, PA, Pine Grove, PA, New Madison, PA, and/or Oakland, Maryland. Oakland, Maryland's not too far away, but it's not super close either. I'm speaking into the wireless microphone number 7. Don't know if you've seen the same thing or a different thing. Mic check 1, 2. I'm continuing to speak into the microphone in HT2. HT2 mic check 1, 2, 1, 2 mic check. Unless I hear from you otherwise, I'm going to move on from this mic over to the next mic over, which will be microphone 8. So I'm now over at microphone 8, Andrew M. Sherman, acting deputy director. It's the center witness. Speaking into microphone 8 in HT2. Just kind of rambling on about things so that you have something to read. I wish I had looked at this before, so it would be easier to just pull something up. I used to have like PDFs of like camera manuals, but I don't seem to have any right now. So I'm going to keep kind of rambling into this microphone unless you tell me you need me to move. I guess we also kind of need to be conscientious of time at some point, but I'm going to continue to just kind of speak into this microphone, and I'm going to move on to microphone 9. So this is witness microphone 9, witness mic 9, check 1, 2. I'm currently sitting at witness mic 9. I'm about an arm's length away from the microphone, which is kind of where I think you would want up if you sat comfortably in the chair. Chairs recline and all that. I didn't see anybody really reclining in the hearing yesterday. Mostly kind of was just turning and facing whichever direction we needed to speak to. So if I continue to do that, then hopefully you can hear me in the broadcast feed. Mic check 1, 2, mic. And I am going to move over to the next microphone over, unless I hear from you otherwise. Mic check. This is microphone 10. This is back into member microphone. It just occurred to me you could probably communicate to me by turning the microphone's mutes on and off, and then I would see that and be able to respond to it. But continue to speak into the microphone. Mic check 1, 2. This is mic number 10. Mic 10 check. Mic. Committee on Appropriations, U.S. House of Representatives. On GPO Appropriations request, U.S. Government Publishing Office, 732 North Capitol Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. 2041-001. I'm going to move over to the next mic, unless telling me otherwise. Mic check 1, 2. This is mic 11, check 1, 2. This is probably actually the best view of the entire desk, so just see straight out onto the mall, which is pretty cool. The Smithsonian building is always a nice building to look at. You see the Washington Monument, and then prepared statement before the Subcommittee on Legislative Branch Appropriations, Committee on Appropriations, U.S. House of Representatives. U.S. Government Publishing Office, 732 North Capitol Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C. 2401-0001. Moving on to the next microphone. I'm now at the ranking member's microphone. This is microphone number 12. Mic check 1, 2. Sitting kind of comfortable distance from the microphone, speaking at a comfortable level. And just for fun, I'm going to get really into it real quick just to see what happens. And then I'm going to lean right back and continue to speak to the microphone at a normal level. Microphone. Hello. Mic check 1, 2. Mic check 1, 2. I'm speaking into the microphone, and hopefully your hearing changes are apart.
Test mic 1 2 1 2. Test mic 1 2 1 2. Test test. Test test. Sometimes it's the.
Oh, okay. I didn't turn it up, I guess.
Yeah. Test mic 1 2 1 2. Testing the mic of Mr. Taylor. I'll test the witness mic in a minute. Hello, hello. Test test test. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
So this is microphone 10, mic 10 check 1 2, mic 10, then mic 10 loud, then mic 10 more relaxed. What time do your members usually start coming in? Now? At 10? Okay. Just the when should I disappear, so I'm over at mic number 9 now. Mic 9 check 1 2, mic 9 check, mic 9 check 1 2. I'm speaking into microphone number 9 and HT2, mic check 1 2, mic check. I'm speaking into mic number 9. So this is me moving over to microphone number 8, mic 8 check 1 2, mic 8 check 1 2. I'm in mic 8. What if I make a Jurassic jump? I'm now over in mic number 2, mic 2 check 1 2. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Prepared statement before the Subcommittee on Legislative Branch Appropriations, Committee on Appropriations, U.S. House of Representatives. U.S. Government Publishing Office, 732 North Capitol Street, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20401-0001. I've moved over to mic number 4, mic 4 check 1 2, mic check 1 2. Speaking into the wireless microphone number 4 in HT2. It's under the baseball picture. Mic check 1 2, speaking into mic number 4. Now I'm over at mic number 5. Mic 5, check 1, 2. Mic 5, check 1, check 1. Mic 5. Speaking into mic number 5. Check 1, 2. Mic check. I'm continuing to speak into mic number 5, and then I'm going to just move over to one of the witness mics. So now I'm over at witness mic number 8. Witness mic 8, mic check 1, 2, microphone. Continuing to speak into witness mic 8. Mic check 1, 2, mic. Probably a lot of stuff kind of going on in the background. Seeing what you hear, what you don't. Hopefully everything's kind of going along well. Mic 7, check 1, 2. People are starting to come in. Mic check 1, 2.
Good morning, everybody. Call the subcommittee to order. Thank you, everyone attending this hearing this morning. We are conducting our second hearing of the 2019 appropriations process in the legislative branch subcommittee. I'm joined by Ranking Member Tim Ryan from Ohio, and other committee members will be coming and going as they're able. We have a lot of hearings this week in a lot of different subcommittees, so they will hopefully come and go when they're able to. This morning, we're having a hearing on the Government Publishing Office. I'd like to thank the Acting Director, Mr. Sherman, for joining us today. I understand this is your 38th year at the Publishing Office, and your other witnesses this morning, Steve Shedd, Chief Finance. I'm sorry. Chief Administrative. Sorry, I don't. Well, it says it there. Herbert Jackson, Chief Administrative Officer, who you've been with the agency for 38 years as well. And then bringing up the rear, kind of one of the new kids on the block there, Lyle Green, Managing Director of Official Journals of Government, who's only been there 27 years. So, have you found the bathrooms yet? Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, rookie. GPO has not been up to testify in recent years. We felt it was important to hear from them directly regarding your fiscal year 2019 budget requests, part of our effort to continue our work to ensure that we're spending taxpayer dollars wisely. The Government Publishing Office has the important mission of keeping America informed. GPO does that by providing permanent public access to federal government information at no charge to the public through its Federal Depository Library program, which partners with over 1,140 libraries nationwide, and GovInfo. They produce and distribute products and services for all three branches of the federal government, including U.S. passports and official publications of Congress and the White House, and operates distribution centers to fulfill orders for government publications. So this is an agency that many haven't heard of, but probably have utilized over the years in one way or another. The fiscal year 2019 budget request is $117 million, which is $68,000 below current levels. GPO's appropriations have been flat since fiscal year 2016 and have declined 21% since fiscal year 2010. We often hear the cliche, we have to do more with less, but GPO has been a true example of doing just that, doing more with less resources. Their continued transition to digital technologies and products has increased productivity while also maintaining tight financial controls on overhead costs, coupled with a buyout for employees in fiscal year 2015 has made it possible for GPO's lower funding requests. So, gentlemen, thank you for coming to the committee today, and I'd like to yield to my good friend, the gentleman and scholar from Ohio, Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it, and I'll be very brief. You've done a lot of heavy lifting over the years, and we really appreciate it. We want to say thank you to you for being so responsive to coming up and talking with us here at the committee. I'd also like to commend you, as the chairman mentioned, about your approach to the annual budget. Even though the cost of each full-time equivalent and employee and other prices are going up, and even though you know we have a budget deal that's helping to begin to dig our way out of sequestration, you're asking for almost the exact same amount of money you were given in 16, 17, and 18. A slight cut. In fact, as the chairman mentioned, you're not only making our jobs easier, you're proving that sometimes the government can keep costs down by leveraging new technologies and innovative ways of managing your situation. So we're very thankful, Mr. Chairman, and look forward to your testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman, your complete statement will be made part of the official record, probably something that you'll print at some point.
I hope so.
And publish.
We look forward to it.
So, but feel free to summarize your remarks at this time for the committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Yoder, Ranking Member Ryan, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to be here this morning to discuss the GPO's appropriations request for fiscal year 2019. With me at the table, as you've said, are GPO's Administrative Officer Herb Jackson, and the Managing Director of GPO's Official Journals of Government Business Unit, Lyle Green. Lyle is responsible for day-to-day liaison with both houses of Congress to make sure your printing and other publishing needs are met as you need them. The GPO is responsible for publishing congressional publications and for making them known to the public. Our mission derives from the requirement in Article 1, Paragraph 5 of the Constitution, which says that each House of Congress shall keep a journal of its proceedings and from time to time publish the same. The Government Printing Office, as we used to be called, was established to carry out that publishing mission on Congress's behalf. For most of our history, we did this by printing and distributing congressional publications. For the past quarter century, however, we have deployed digital technologies to carry out our mission. As a result, we're now named the Government Publishing Office, where printing is just one of the many publishing technologies we use. Today, for the House and the Senate, we produce congressional documents, the daily congressional record, bills, reports, hearings, committee prints, and other documents in digital and print, providing official information in the forms and formats that Congress needs to carry out its constitutional legislative mission while providing public access to these documents nationwide. Our use of modern publishing technologies has significantly reduced the costs of GPO's operations. Computerized typesetting and related technologies have cut the costs of congressional publishing by more than 70% over the last generation. That's since 1980. Digital dissemination through the web has reduced the cost of disseminating congressional and other government information while expanding public access exponentially. Last year, our online service provided access to more than 2.2 million titles, which and the service averaged more than 45 million document retrievals a month, more than 500 million annually. We have just 1,740 staff now, fewer than at any time in the past century. When Herb and I started, we had over 6,000. We're an agency that is compressing its size and not growing its size. Yet our productivity, as a result of digital technology and other equipment upgrades that we've made in the last 5 years, continues to increase. As a result, our total appropriations request of $117 million for fiscal year 2019 is the lowest in the past 15 years. That's measured in current dollars. For our congressional publishing account, we're requesting $79 million for fiscal year 2019. Funding for this account has been flat since fiscal year 2014, the last 5 years. For the public information programs of the Superintendent of Documents, we're asking for $32 million to expand our efforts to bring more digital products into the Federal Depository Library Program, whose libraries average approximately 3 per congressional district nationwide. And for our Business Operations Revolving Fund, we're seeking $6 million to continue development of our online system called GovInfo and pay for necessary cybersecurity measures. Before ending, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that the men and women of the GPO are some of the hardest working, most dedicated employees that you have in the legislative branch. Regardless of the demands of the legislative schedule and regardless of the conditions under which they have to work, whether there's a snowstorm, an earthquake, a government shutdown, or other conditions, they will be there to support you in carrying out your work. That was what we were created to do, and it remains our most important mission. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, and Ranking Member Ryan, thank you so much for letting me speak to you, and I'd be happy now to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you, Director Sherman, and if your colleagues have anything to add at any time, feel free to chime in, and want to make this sort of can be a little bit of a casual format.
Well, good.
I'll sit right back over here.
Yeah, right? I mean, you kind of have to be sitting at the table to talk, but if you're at the table, you're good. I first kind of maybe want to ask a broad question about the mission and where you see the department heading in the next 10 to 20 to 30 years. Certainly, in your 38 years and 27 years, you've seen very significant changes.
That's correct.
At the publishing office. When did it change from printing to publishing?
In 2014.
2014,
Yes.
Okay. So that's obviously a symbolic change, but it also indicates the changing nature of the agency and how you operate. I'm guessing when you started, the concept of a digital publishing it was not something that was in your vernacular.
Nope.
And now I assume it's now in the style manual. Which is a good read, by the way, Tim. You ought to check this out. Yeah, it's going to be a must read for my legislative staff here coming up. But so you reduced workforce from 6,000 to 1,740, which I'm sure in some ways has been painful for folks that had been there, and as jobs become less necessary, that changes how employees fit in our current economy. We're having to focus our own on retraining and getting people retooled for the jobs of the modern economy. Where do you see the future of this heading? What do you see the role of the publishing office continuing to go more digital. How are you innovating and keeping up with the innovations that are out there? You know, are there apps for phones and those sorts of things? And where do you think our best investment would be to get the best ROI for taxpayers? You know, where would we want to place dollars that might help you innovate, which would help us save net savings?
Sure. Thank you. That's an excellent question. When Herb and I started at the GPO, type was set by machines called linotype machines and monotype machines. This is the way type was set across America in both government and the commercial sector for 80 some odd years. These machines were invented in the early 1900s, late 19th century. We had more than 1,000 people alone involved in what is called composing, operating linotype machines, setting the type for pages, making up pages, that kind of thing. What we did was we adopted like the rest of the industry, computerized typesetting, which immediately began reducing the need for so much staff. You could be much more productive with computerized typesetting than with linotype machines. At GPO, this was an evolutionary process. What we did was we retrained staff who formerly used the older equipment to use the newer equipment. And that's been our style all along. We don't have occupational dislocation. We don't let people go because technology has changed. We attrit. That's how we get the employment reductions, but we use a lot of retraining to get people involved in newer technologies. The appropriation for congressional printing in those days, 1980, let's say, was about $90 million in 1980 dollars. That's the equivalent of almost $300 million today. And as you can see, our request is for $79 million, a reduction of 70 some odd %. That reflects increased productivity, and it reflects fewer staff required to carry out these tasks. We still publish as much material for Congress as we used to. I mean, the Congressional Record remains a significant publication, and you all are still producing bills, reports, hearings, and all these other documents. But the technologies we're using are much more productive, and that's where the investment needs to keep going. We have a system of financing at GPO which is totally directed and pointed in that direction, investing in GPO's future. We've increased the net value, the book value, I should say, of GPO's plant and equipment almost 100% over the last 5 years by the investments we've made in new equipment and technology. And we'll continue trending towards more and more utilization of digital, and I'm sure that digital itself will continue to evolve in many different ways, some ways that we know nothing about now. Just as in 1980, we had no idea about apps or smartphones or anything like that. But we have to stay on top of that because that's what the public expects. That's how you get public access to the information about what Congress is doing and how you're doing your jobs. That's how we keep the public informed about what we do.
Well, and I think that's the clear benefit beyond the taxpayer savings is that we create more transparency because with GovInfo and other opportunities, you can reach people that you wouldn't reach in a printing format, but anywhere in the world, in the country, can get the information they need immediately. So it provides a better service at a cheaper rate.
And with respect to that, if I can just add one thing, several years ago, in the House, a group was set up called the Bulk Data Task Force, Legislative Bulk Data Task Force. Actually, it was set up through the impetus of this committee and the Office of the Clerk, and it continues to operate under the leadership of the Deputy Clerk of the House, Bob Reeves. It's a group that comprises not only the GPO and elements of the House, but staff from the Library of Congress, from the Congressional Research Service, people from the Senate Secretary's office are involved. And it has come up with a lot of novel and innovative projects. It's really been a sort of a hothouse for new ideas that can be developed and implemented to push Congress forward in the field of transparency. And we've done a lot of projects under that task force. We have a lot operating right now, and they will last into the future. And they're not terribly expensive, but in reaching new levels of transparency. And the Speaker's office, by the way, both Mr. Boehner at the time it started, and Mr. Ryan now have been totally supportive of this effort, and they've reached new levels of transparency and openness in congressional information for the public.
Sounds like a worthy endeavor. I want to ask you a little bit about the changes to Title 44. The House Admin Committee is working on revisions to Chapter 19, which focuses on the Federal Depository Library Program. As we know, the program was created to make the federal government publications available to the public at no cost. House Admin Bill greatly expands the electronic distribution of documents, which would allow more libraries to participate and provides the flexibility of not having to have shelf space for the hard copies. What impacts would these proposed revisions have on GPO's appropriations requirements?
Certainly. We were part of this process. This bill grew out of hearings that were held throughout the year last year on modernizing Title 44. We've felt throughout that process that the Depository Library Program, whose organic legislation dates to 1962, needed a significant amount of updating. As a practical matter, we have made that a program responsive to our electronic and digital measures over the last 25 years. But the statute needed to catch up with modern practice, and that's what this bill does. It recognizes statutorily that digital is an important component of the program and provides us with tools, certain tools, to work with federal agencies to ensure that more of that information is brought into the program on a systematic basis. It does envision an expanded role for GPO in some areas that we anticipate will require additional staff and additional IT systems. But I think that that will be done over an evolutionary basis. We're not going to be able to go 0 to 60 all of a sudden. What we will, in fact, be doing is building on certain services that we already have operating. Our request for FY19 seeks an increase in funding for the public information programs of the Superintendent of Documents to be more aggressive in collecting electronic and digital data from the executive branch, so it's kind of a down payment on that already. And I think with ongoing savings in the congressional publishing appropriation, it's quite likely that we could see a stable appropriation with increases for public information programs for the Superintendent of Documents and decreases, offsetting decreases in congressional publishing.
Okay. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having a bit of nostalgia here, I was an intern in 1995, and my job was to get the congressional records tied up in a bow and go put them on everyone's desk.
There you go.
So, as a member, I'm glad that no one has to do that anymore. I got a couple questions. They're kind of more about the real estate, some of the real estate issues. We've talked about the Books for the Blind program.
Yes.
Can you give us an update on where we are with
Certainly. We were asked by this staff of this committee a month or two ago to look into whether available space could be prepared for the NLS, and we think it's possible at GPO. We've got certain space currently occupied by binding equipment, which could be relocated out of where it is, and we could do some other housing changes for some of our staff on both the 4th and 5th floors of our building. We're talking about a package of space that's the equivalent of 50 to 60,000 square feet. The architect of the Capitol has been over with some of the NLS staff, has already looked at the space, and as I understand it, there's report language about the development of a plan for this. Now, what is necessary for us to do, we are in the process of making a major acquisition of new press equipment to print the Congressional Record and the Federal Register congressional calendars. The current equipment we have are in 3 enormous newspaper presses that we bought in 1995. And at a time when we were printing about 20,000 copies of the Record a night and 35,000 copies of the Register a night. We need to get smaller, more flexible inkjet machines because the print runs for both these publications are tending towards less than 2,000 a night now. Once we make that acquisition and install the smaller equipment, we'll get rid of this larger equipment, and that will provide more space that we can move existing binding systems into and free up the space for the NLS. So we're happy to work with the AOC and the LOC on this project.
Great. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. The other issue is the future location of primary and backup data centers.
We actually anticipated this several years ago by moving our primary data before a certain facility that's currently operating came up. We had relocated our primary data facility outside the building. We still have at the ACF, the Legislative Branch ACF. We still have digital data center in our building that we believe we could reduce by about 50% and relocate that as well. We still need, as I understand, the House still needs some access to a data center on site, but it can be the footprint of that can be substantially reduced. And our CIO, Herb, and I have already talked to our CIO about coming up with a plan for us. He will be visiting the Redstone Turner site later this month, and we are going to come up with a plan to carry this out.
To put it, like, where, how close does it have to be?
The site, the amount of material that we would reduce in our current building down here, we would move to Redstone Turner.
Where's Redstone?
It's in Southern Virginia.
Okay. Great, thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman. You know what, let me, I got you. Is there any, because a lot of what we deal with regard to protecting our systems deals with cyber and cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Is there any issue within the GPO? And
it's anybody who doesn't worry about it doesn't know what they're doing. We expend a great deal of money on cybersecurity. We're members of the Legislative Branch Cybersecurity Working Group, as well as the Legislative Branch CIO, Chief Information Officer, and the Legislative Branch Chief Information Security Officer Councils. The budget that we just got approved through the omnibus has $2 million for cybersecurity, which we will spend, and we're asking for another $1 million in the FY19 budget. We have ties closely with the Department of Homeland Security and the relevant law enforcement agencies to help us police our cybersecurity, and it's something that we always are very cognizant of. We don't want to brag about it because it is a continually evolving field.
right, only as good as your next shot, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, keep us abreast of
Absolutely.
any needs you may have with that.
Absolutely.
Yield back.
Talk to the committee about passports. What's the future of passports look like?
Passports. We, since 1926, have been producing passports for the State Department. Until 1985, that was kind of a sleepy business. They were hand-bound, and we produced maybe 3-4 million a year. Starting in the 2007, thereabouts, passports that we produce, we're producing compliance with something called the International Civil Aeronautics Organization requirements, ICAO standards. This is a UN organization where the signatory nations agree to have certain features in their passports to improve interoperability and exchanges crossing each other's borders. So the passports since then have had an electronic chip in them and an antenna array planted in the cover, which carries their personal data as well as the data that's printed on the personal page. We produce blank passports for the State Department. The State Department personalizes them with the information that's adjudicated from applicants for passports. Last year, we produced about 22 million passports, and it's not a sleepy little business anymore. It's a high-tech, automated process with a significant secure IT component to it, and we manage a secure supply chain, as well as provide other forms of security to it. We're in the process right now of getting ready to produce what's called the next generation passport. This passport for the personalized page will have a polycarbonate card sewn into the binding of the book. To personalize it, the State Department will laser engrave the information on that card. It's another anti-counterfeiting device. We're continually working with the State Department on security features for the passport. Over the last 5 years, we've spent about $100 million, which we've recovered through fees we charge to the passport, to the State Department for passport production, for capital investment for the equipment to produce this line of work. We've reconstructed our facility substantially to do this. We'd love to have you over and to show you what we have and what we do down there. We have passport operations, not only here in Washington, D.C., but in Southwest Mississippi at the Stennis Space Center. That, by the way, that's not an appropriate. This is
how
not
is
an
that funded?
appropriated fund.
How is that funded?
We charge the State Department a fee for every passport we make. It's approximately $15 a passport.
And that will continue with
Yes,
the
sir.
next-gen passports?
Yes, sir.
Same fee or same at least?
It'll be a little more
arrangement?
expensive.
Okay.
And they understand that. They understand that.
We'll pay for it one way or another, I guess.
Again, our fee is $15. The fees paid to get a passport include a lot of other costs, which are not our costs.
We discussed earlier in the hearing the digitization of records, in particular GovInfo, which I understand has moved out of beta this past December. What's the status of your plan to replace the federal digital system with the new information access system, GovInfo?
That's a good question. GovInfo is the third iteration of our online information services, which started actually in 1994. We've been putting the congressional record and congressional documents online for the public for about 25 years now. The first system was called GPO Access, and that ran for many years. It ran too long. And it had to be modernized with the federal digital system, which debuted in 2009. And now that system itself has become dated, and we have upgraded our systems completely with GovInfo, which is entirely mobile-friendly, which has a number of interesting search features, whereas if you search on a congressional bill, it'll show you not only the bill, but if it's been enacted, the law, the debate that was associated with it, the report, any ancillary regulations that might have been issued pursuant to it. It has a lot of, it's just much more modern than FedSys, and that shows you how quickly things change in the digital world. That system was up and operating for, well, approximately, it'll be close to 10 years, but after that, they've got to be refreshed and rebuilt. And we will move FedSys out of operation by the end of this calendar year, and GovInfo will become our system of record then.
By the end of the year?
Yes, sir.
And how long do you see its lifespan?
Well, we're hoping for a good 5 years, but it depends on how rapidly technology keeps changing.
And what are the modernizations of GovInfo off of the current system, the FDS?
The amount of content continues to expand. The searchability is much improved. The retrieval has features like the one I just described. It's mobile friendly. FedSys was not. So we don't really have to build apps anymore. And we were in that business for a while. The United States budget is an app, which you could read on your phone, that kind of thing. You don't really need to do that anymore because this is gauged directly for that technology. Depending on how quickly things keep changing and what other features pop up, it's really anybody's guess.
Mr. Ryan?
Good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for your testimony. I think it's good to have GPO come before the committee and continue to conduct good oversight and ensure that we're making GPO successful, carrying out its mission, and doing so in the most cost-effective manner.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ryan, we appreciate your support. You both, we work very closely with the staffs of this committee and have nothing but good things to say about them, which is to be valued in this day and age. And we look forward to continuing to work with you on this budget. Actually, we'd love to have you down for a tour.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
At
that.
a time. It's an interesting place to see. And
Let's do that.
it's an institution.
Let's do that. Thanks for your work. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for your appearance today. We will continue to work with you as we work on this year's budget process. Subcommittee stands in recess until 2 p.m. today, at which time we will receive testimony from the architect of the Capitol.